Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Boom.
Okay. Question though.
Yes, sir.
What the hell is a performative male?
What do you mean?
Is this?
Performative male?
I've been seeing this thing on my socials, and people like just referring to this idea of a performative male. What does performative male mean?
I've not even heard of this expression.
Do you know
what
what
do you mean?
Exactly what this means. We
What
would
is-
rather have an inside joke about this.
What is it?
So it's that guy that like reads like female literature and has an earring.
Oh, a performative male, like a guy.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying performative male, like you're mailing, and I was like, what the
no.
fuck?
Like they drink matcha and they're like, you know.
Right.
that's
It's to
the
like.
guy.
I see.
But is it like
Yeah.
a fake thing, or is it like that's genuinely their personality?
The idea is it's fake to get girls.
Right. Okay.
Like yeah.
Is it kind of a bit on the idea of like pretending to be gay at a girl sleepover?
Not as like not. quite
But you're on it with the like concept, you know? It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
guy
yeah.
who like pretends to be feminist and things like that. To like, oh my god, he's such a like nice guy,
Sure,
and then
sure.
you know.
like deeply fake. They're like doing it. They're like clearly just quoting.
Right.
I get you.
Okay.
I get you.
In Eddington.
No
Oh.
spoilers.
Oh, okay.
I need to see it. I need to see it this
Yeah.
weekend. I genuinely haven't had the time, but I really want to see it.
Hello, guys. What is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. This is episode number 83. Guys, today we are welcoming a long-time guest, long-time veteran of the Popcorn Podcast, Mickey, aka Mr. Look Aside Films on the Couch. How are you, sir?
What? I'm very good. I'm very good.
You're already getting in character.
I'm
for God.
excited. Yeah. I'm good. I'm excited. Yeah. Every time we do another one, I'm more chill than the last time. I remember
really?
the first time we did it, I was like,
Dude, I think we all.
Yeah,
we,
yeah,
we,
yeah.
we were all, like, if you go back and watch that episode,
yeah.
like, hi, we're shooting a podcast.
Yeah,
Let's see
yeah,
how
yeah.
this goes.
I think this film is good. Well, I disagree. Okay, I don't want to argue.
I think the Oscars are, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad,
Yeah. There was one where I read a statement. Do you remember that? Where it was like, I don't want to shit on any films, and I read a statement.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where it was like, I solemnly swear I will not critique.
I respect.
I respect the art form.
I do.
Anyhow, it's already been a chaotic start.
Yeah.
Guys, today we're doing something a little bit different. As you can tell by the title of this video, this isn't a review. This isn't a ranking video. This isn't a sort of usual video. Let's just say that usual episode. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. How do I say this?
Spite.
Yeah, Mickey and I had a disagreement the other
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Mickey
we
and
did.
I had a disagreement. In fact, do you want to tell the folks what exactly transpired without actually getting into the discussions, but like just a
So we did like, I don't know how deep into the lore you want to get, but we were basically hanging out late night. We were having, it was like kind of a birthday day, and then we had dinner, and then we watched 21 and Over. And then we had a couple of drinks. It's like 11:30, and then Panwa, who is a very familiar guest on the podcast, because he is the shit stirrer that he is, right? He went to Dylan and he said, there is a specific film, we'll get into it later, I think, and he said Mickey thinks this film is objectively bad, which actually, objectively mid, let's say, and I do think it's objectively mid. And then Mickey thinks this film is objectively mid, and that led us to what, like an hour-long proper, it was a heated, argument.
Some people
about,
would say heated. I would say healthy.
no, it was healthy, but it was
absolutely.
heated. It
Yeah,
was
I think we both had a lot. We had some drinks.
It was definitely like, I think Clara and Kane were like, stop.
Yeah, our
already.
girlfriends were like, "Can you guys just stop?"
Yeah.
It's like 11.
And we were like, okay, 5 more minutes, and then we'd argue for like 30
and then
more
we
minutes.
shook hands. We're like 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Yeah. We did. We were like, okay, enough is enough. And then one would go to the bathroom, then would come out and would be like, one more thing I gotta say. But it was good fun.
Yeah.
And we're recreating it.
Well, I
today.
wouldn't say recreate. I think obviously there's this idea, like if you have ever got into an argument or a sort of disagreement with someone, particularly about film, in a moment, you know that you'll never truly be able to recreate that. But I think what we're going to try and do is somewhat build on some of the sort of topics and elements we were discussing.
It's good actually, because I think a lot of the thoughts that we were saying during that night, we were finding then. Whereas now I come and I'm like, okay, I actually know where my stance is, and I can define it so much better.
Hey, hopefully it's going to be fun, and if it works out, maybe we'll do something like this again. So, just to kind of kick things off, I want to say, like, if you're listening to this episode, if you're into film, if you watch a lot of movies, if you love cinema, etc., we've all heard people say things. We've all heard people use the phrase that film was objectively bad, or that film was an objectively good film, or that film was an objectively mid film, right? Like we've all heard this in the kind of both online, in person, whatever that might be. But what does it actually mean to be objectively something? Can a film really be judged objectively? And how close can we get to 100% objectivity in a film? I feel like I've set this up as like a serious conversation, but I feel like it is hopefully going to be anything but.
Yeah.
Feel free to go for a walk, do some chores, and just have us on in the background. Apologies for any sort of upcoming chaos. And let's see if any of us have any brain cells left by the end of it.
Chaos. Yeah.
The term objective. Mickey? What do you think the term objective means, generally speaking, and what do you think the term objective means when talking about films?
It's interesting because this is, I think, during the night, we were talking about this for a long time, and I think we realized our disagreement actually lays in defining the term objective. Because if we take objectivity in film, to me, objectivity is it's based on a certain, let's say in art, it's based on a certain understanding of the medium.
Yeah.
So I think to be objective, you need to have a certain, you don't need to be an expert. You need to be somewhat knowledgeable of the medium. And that allows you to form an opinion that is not clouded by bias or personal, emotion or all of those things. Obviously, film is different, and we'll get to that because to define a film as good, it needs to emotionally affect you. It needs to have all of these things. But to me, objectivity is the ability to view something without necessarily connecting it to your own personal taste, your own personal experiences, and so on.
Yeah, I think so as well. I also think it's important for us to state early on that this doesn't exist. It cannot 100%. We cannot 100% be objective when talking about the film because first and foremost, film is a form of art. Art is meant to, get an emotional reaction out of the viewer, out of the person sort of experiencing it to begin with. So objectivity is 100% objectivity with any art form is impossible. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. But I think what we're trying to here discuss is how close can we get to that when talking about a film.
And what defines the how close we get to it? I think you think that is different metrics to what I think is the metrics of objectivity.
Sure. So some of the reasons, obviously, why we all know this, but I'm going to just list them anyhow. But some of the reasons why we can't achieve 100% objectivity in film is because we all interpret art in different ways based on our own memories, based on our own experiences. For example, the interpretation of the film. For example, a long runtime. Someone might call a long runtime epic. Another person might call it bloated or long. 100% objectivity in film can't be achieved because of human perception of a film. So, for example, a slow, sort of methodical film might be boring to one person, but it might be thought-provoking to someone else.
Yeah.
Cultural and historical context is also important when sort of analyzing film. A film's meaning can change over time. Like we've all heard the term, this film aged badly, or this film aged better. It got better with audio as time went on. And of course, potentially the biggest reason for why we can't sort of gain 100% objectivity in film is because of emotional response. Art is designed to provoke emotions. How do you value one person's emotional response against another to a film? So I feel like, just to go to sort of what you were discussing about objectivity in film, when we talk about film, when we analyze film, when we critique film, there are certain things I think are common amongst a lot of people who do this. How can we say whether a film is good or bad? What are the things we talk about when we say a film is good or bad?
I think it's really difficult to define, isn't it? Because a film is a medium that it's all other art forms combined, and it's story, it's visuals, it's just directorial vision, it's so many things. But I think the way we get close to objectivity is understanding all of the medium, and then kind of comparing is a bad example, but you know what's perceived as well, you know what we assume is right, because there are certain things in film that are right and certain things that are wrong. If we look at technical composition, like there is a good way to light a film and there is a bad way to light a film.
I don't agree.
There we go.
I don't agree. I don't think there is an objectively good way to light a film. I think it depends on the story.
Okay, but I'm not.
But I
talking
think it's
about-
possible to for a film to be underlit, for example.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm talking about, because I'm not talking about like if you have a great gaffer and it's the lighting choices that you're making.
Yeah.
Those are subjective. I'm talking about you're lighting something flat. You're under lighting something.
Yeah, yeah.
That is objectively
Absolutely.
bad lighting.
Yeah.
And I think that, you can have objectively bad sound if
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
hear stuff,
Yep.
And it's like, I think you can have objectively bad acting, because it's like, do you believe the person or not? And I think a lot of that then can come together to put the value of the film somewhat objectifiable.
Acting is a tricky one because
Yeah.
acting is, again, you can think someone is giving a bad performance because you don't believe that person as the character. However, there is a good chance someone else might actually believe that. Like, maybe the vast majority of people don't,
Yeah.
but we can't say something as an objectively... It's difficult to say because we all talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, we all say it.
Yeah.
But I do think it is impossible to say whether a performance is objectively bad unless 100% of the people viewing the film
Yeah.
are in agreement that they didn't believe the character,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't do that. It's not objectively bad.
I disagree, because it is the same concept as lighting. Because if you put an underlit film to 100,000 people, 10,000 of them might say, well, I like that it was dark. But the fact is that lighting is not good. Like, you cannot see the story.
But if they say they liked the lighting, would that not mean that they watched the film? They were able to figure out what's going on in the film.
Yeah, but does that define the lighting then as kind of objectively mid?
No. But to say a film is objectively bad in terms of lit means okay, let's agree on this end. The vast majority of people can't tell what the hell is going on. For example, let's use a real example. So Game of Thrones season 8, there was a huge episode 3 of season 8 was the long night episode, the Battle of Winterfell. A lot of the complaints coming from this episode was that nobody could see what the fuck was going on because it was underlit, it was badly lit, etc. I remember watching that episode and like just being blown away at the technical craft. I personally didn't have much of a problem with the whole lighting stance on it. I came out and I was looking at people's reactions like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like, a lot of people say they can't. So like when I watched it, I genuinely didn't have that problem. And I don't, like, who knows if that's because I was invested in the episode. So I was, it wasn't such a defining factor for me, or if the thing was actually lit pretty decently and most people just didn't turn the brightness up high enough on their TV. I don't know. Like, how can you truly know something like that? Like, we all watch what happens, the events of the episode. So technically, like, technically we could all see. I'm not saying that's the standard for lighting, but I'm just saying, like, I think fundamentally, if you say the film is like underlit, it basically means you struggle to dissect what's happening on screen, correct?
Correct.
For the most part.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah? Or you could say some scenes were unlit.
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah,
what was going on. It's objectively bad film.
But I think in Game of Thrones, that is a choice that they made. So because I actually kind of agree with you. I remember watching it. I did think it was too dark, but it wasn't like, oh, this is objectively bad lighting. It bothered me a little bit, but it was clear that was a choice. So they were like, we are going to make this dark because A, B, and C, right?
Why do you think they would have made that decision? What do you think the motive behind having a dimly lit or mostly dimly lit episode is?
I mean,
like, if you had to like just...
Probably, they want the episode to feel a little bit more chaotic. They want the episode to feel slightly more like you're in it with the shit that they're going through. Like, you don't really know what's going on as well. Yeah. It does create, like, the Batman. The Batman is very dark, and it creates this kind of moodier atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'm talking more about, you have flat, like, lighting. There is certain rules to, like, people go and they study lighting, and there's certain rules about the way that you should light something for it to be perceivable. Because even in Game of Thrones, even when it's underlit, they are still lighting it to a point where it follows these specific concepts of, seeing the character. We're going, oh, it's too dark, but it is still... It looks good, you know what I mean? It's too dark, but it looks good. But when it doesn't look good, that is objectively bad.
Yeah, I think this is also, like, we could talk about lighting for a long time, I'm sure, but it also goes into every
technical category.
Every technical category, but also specifically with lighting, cinematography specifically. I think there's a common misconception about good cinematography. What makes good cinematography? A lot of people say they love cinematography, or they think the cinematography of a film, of a TV show, is amazing because it looks visually pretty, or the compositions are well done. But what does it actually mean to have good cinematography? I would say that the term "good the cinematography was great" is an overused term in film criticism, and mistakenly so. People just attribute it to a good-looking film, whereas I would say cinematography is something much more cerebral than that, because it actually is about what is the best visual presentation of the story that we can achieve in this moment. That is what I think cinematography is, to a certain degree. And we're all sort of guilty of using a film as, good cinematography because we think it's pretty. Like, we can all do that. I've done it so many times as well. But I think what we have basically just started talking about when we talk about objectivity in film is there are certain technical crafts that we can critique on an objective basis to a certain extent. For example, cinematography, editing, sound, score, production design, special effects. We've all seen films where CGI looks really bad. These are all measurable things to a certain extent.
You want to talk about story and like depth and that then we get in.
That also, I would say, to a certain extent, is a measurable element of the film. That's how we critique films, and how we can use something we can talk about to sort of get closer to determining 100% objectivity in film, I think. Like story and writing, does the film have narrative coherence? Can we make sense of the events going on? Are the characters well written? Do they, not necessarily saying every story has to have an arc, but are the characters well fleshed out? Is the dialogue good? And how well the sort of themes are executed? Right? These are all things we can critique with a certain level of objectivity.
I agree.
Agree?
Yeah.
Even though we both understand we can't fully.
100%. You can't fully, but
we can't.
My general point for this podcast is that I think there is objectivity in film. I think you can't fully define a film as great, fully define a film as bad, but there is definitely it is somewhat quantifiable.
To a certain extent. I remember I had Seth reviews on, and one of the quickfire questions I asked all new guests is, what's a bad film that you love? He's the first person who said to me, I don't believe it exists. And I was like, for God's sake, okay, fine. What's a generally considered bad film that
you love?
You love? I think it's very interesting because
it is,
me and him sat down and we debated for about 10 minutes on why I think Megalopolis sucks and he thinks Megalopolis is great. So it's a very interesting topic, and I hope that we've sort of discussed talking about some of the general kind of criticisms that we will talk about when talking about film, but we're swimming in a kind of discussion about something we can never truly achieve. But it's always fun to do that. So I actually want to go back to our discussion that we had the other night and kind of the
film.
So I'll say we've all been pissed off by someone who has a differing opinion on you, whether that be in a.
I'm about to get completely destroyed by every fucking fan of this.
We all have.
Because this particular film also has the craziest fan base, doesn't it?
Well, sort of, yeah.
I mean, it's very people who love this film are very passionate about loving this film.
I would, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
so.
it's a superhero film, so you're always gonna get passionate people. But would you care to tell the folks what set off this conversation the other night?
I think the original Spider-Man trilogy is mid. The third one I think is objectively bad, and this was the second one, isn't it? That's what we're talking about.
The opinion that you had that set it off was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films are objectively
bad.
Right.
But okay. In hindsight, I've rewatched some stuff. I don't think they're some bits and things like that. I don't think I will stand my ground. I'm holding my space, saying I don't think they're objectively good. I don't. The second one is okay. It's mid. And the first one is okay as well. Third one is objectively bad. That was the thing that started this entire discussion.
Okay, so to which I responded.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Dylan lost his mind, by the way.
well, no, I did eventually, but I was all like to begin with. I was like, yeah, but what do you?
But also, can I just say before
Sure,
this
sure,
that
sure.
I didn't even bring this up. It was Panwa, the shit star,
Yeah.
who literally, we were like having a great time, we were vibing, and then Panwa went to Dylan and just literally whispered in his ear, Mickey said that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is objectively bad. And then
I was like, what?
yeah.
Okay, and then but then I asked you. I was like, okay, so what's your opinion? And you said you kept saying the phrase, the Sam Raimi films,
Yeah.
Spider-Man films, are objectively bad. So then, to which I asked, what do you mean by
Yeah.
that? Like, so what
Yeah.
do you mean by that?
Right. If you want to talk about these specific films, they are like in story and plot, they're quite simplistic. The dialogue is not great. They're really cheesy. Now, Tobey Maguire's acting, we can talk about that. Like, that is subjective there. I think he's not particularly good as an actor. As Peter Parker, he's good, but as actor in it, he doesn't really shine. If you want to talk about technical levels, I don't think a lot of the costuming is very good. Spider-Man's costume good, but the Green Goblin not very good costuming. That it just doesn't look that good. But that's of the time. Like a lot of superhero films at the time don't have really good visuals. Like that's what we were talking about as well. Is like the Sam Raimi films now carry. I watch them for the record. Like I put them on, but that's because they carry this crazy nostalgia value, and you enjoy it because it's like good vibes from when you were a kid. But my point is that if you made that film, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and you put them in a cinema today, they would not be received at all well by critics and audiences alike. I think on a technical level, like we talked about lighting, they're not very well lit. I think a lot of, the good things for it are that it has that campiness that Spider-Man has. I think he's a good Spider-Man. I think it's fun, it's entertaining. The second one is the best of the three for sure. It has a lot of those story arcs and things like that. That's why, I did overspeak a little. I wouldn't say they are as a trilogy objectively bad or objectively shit, but I think they are overrated, especially now looking at, the films that we have and the way we perceive superhero cinema, especially, they are overrated. And you asked me what is an objectively great superhero film, and I listed a few, and I don't think Spider-Man 2 at all is on that level.
Okay, you made an interesting point when you just said if those films were made today, you think they would be
100%
torn to pieces?
I stand by that. I'm holding my space.
Okay. So, I the thing is, me and you know each other very well. I know a lot of the film opinions you have. You know a lot of the film opinions I have. So when I asked you like the other night, what do you mean by objectively bad? We went on this sort of tangent about what does objectively mean, etc., which obviously sparks this episode, but what I think was taking issue with, not really, but like if I had an issue with what your claim
was the word objectivity. That's what you did.
So if you don't mind me saying, I think what you were trying to say, I think, is the Sam Raimi films, I don't really love them as much as I used to, or maybe not.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I think what you were saying and what you've just said, and a lot of your criticisms for that, is I think the Sam Raimi films have aged badly. Not necessarily that they are objectively bad films, but that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, when you compare them to the film climate we have today, they have aged badly. I think a film aging badly and a film being objectively bad are two different things.
But as the medium grows, hopefully our understanding of the medium and the level rises, right? So now there is a bunch of films that were, perceived as really good in the 90s.
Yeah.
But now, as the medium has grown, as we have like a better understanding of the medium, as blockbusters, specifically blockbusters, are getting better and better in terms of quality and depth and like...
Are they though? Because I don't fully agree with that. I think there are some outliers.
That's what I meant. Sorry, I think there are blockbusters that are getting better and better. Overall, I'm not really sure. I wouldn't, to be honest. Like a lot of the blockbusters, I don't really go to see that much anymore, as you did when we were kids. We're not watching indies or like art house stuff when we were kids. But there are blockbusters now that are fucking amazing as films. As they have the value and the depth and they are really, really good. And like, look at Nolan. Nolan is a blockbuster director. His films are incredible, like every bit as good. If you know the people who go like, oh, Nolan's overrated, like only say it because he's so popular, but he is
Yeah.
a fantastic director. And if you compare the stuff we thought was great in the 90s to now, I think that changes the perspective on whether or not it's objectively good or bad. And in the same way, in 50 years, we can look on some films that came out today that we were like, because there are a lot of blockbusters I see today, and I'm like, it was not bad. You know, it wasn't good, it wasn't great, but it was not bad. And I'm sure in 30 years I'll be like, how did I ever say that about this? Now that I have the knowledge and the understanding of the medium that I didn't before, and all the new things that have come out. You know.
So basically, what you're saying is, given the current climate, the film doesn't hold up as well.
I think the current climate changes the understanding that we have
objectivity.
Of what good is as well. You know?
Okay, so that's interesting. So what you're basically saying is
our understanding of film
Yeah.
has grown a lot, and our understanding of what makes a good film, a good blockbuster, has grown a lot. Things are changing all the time. I'm not saying films are better now. I'm saying that our understanding of a great film, of what makes a good film, is a lot clearer now, as it will get in the future. That's normal, and that's what. That way we can look at films in a much better lens.
But then again, you're saying all this, but this is all still attributed to the idea of time passing. That which is also fundamentally connected to the idea of a film.
Yeah.
That was once great, was perceived to be great, but now as the years have grown and we've all evolved as cinema goes, as film watchers, has not necessarily stood the test of time. In other words, the film is aged poorly.
I agree with
the
that.
film is bad, because I think, like, okay, let's talk about what are some of the blockbusters that came out, let's say 20 years ago or so, or 30 years ago, or however many long
that have aged.
That have aged well, in your opinion.
What are we talking, like 80s?
It could be 80s, it could be 90s, it could be 2000s.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Okay, and the Lord of the Rings films have not aged at all, correct?
Yeah.
They are still as good as they were back then versus now.
Correct. I mean, you can look at some technical things like CGI, obviously things that grow with time, but if you made that exact film if you shot it frame by frame with the technical ability that we have now, it would be just as good as it was then.
Do you think?
Not better, yeah.
Do you think? I can't say I completely disagree with that. I do, because I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings, but also I think the Lord of the Rings, yes, we use Lord of the Rings all the time as people who discuss about them as like the status quo of like the great like blockbusters. I think when you look at Spider-Man 2, or you look at any film and you talk about whether or not the film has aged badly, you can talk about technical things like you just mentioned, which I don't agree with, but we can get into that.
No, I don't. I mean, the technical things are just as an example of something we shouldn't really define its quality by.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think, like, when we talk about films aging, the one sort of metric we can use to determine whether or not a film has truly aged badly is the fundamental of it, is the story. There's a reason why a film can be great, but not have like the best visual effects, or not have the best cinematography, or it doesn't feel as expensive, but you can still have a good film and you can still watch a film and love a film, even if it doesn't have those aspects. But there's a reason why you can't necessarily watch a film, and the majority of people would say it's a good film if the story is bad, but everything else is good. Does that make sense? Because 100%. The story and the narrative are fundamentally, you know, the root of a film, and what we can most, I think, judge our own emotional experience to when watching a film.
Okay, let me ask you this then. What about the things that are directly linked to story, execution, and composition, like writing, directing, and acting?
Writing, directing, and acting.
Correct. So, because you have the story, you know, you have like Spider-Man 2, great story, holds up today, right? The dialogue itself does not hold up today.
What is some of the dialogue in Spider-Man 2?
Come on, like Spider-Man 2 dialogue is like really cheesy and really like
but the cheese and the campy factor is not a cheesy. It's not like a one-off. Oh my god, that line was bad. Oh my god, that is a constant throughout
Yeah.
all three films.
But do you think that was a conscious choice? They decided to make these three films at the time cheesy and campy, or was it just of the time that was considered good?
Absolutely not. Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Partly the reason why I love those films is because it is an example of a director truly having, let's say what you want about Spider-Man 3, truly having majority of creative control over a character as big as Spider-Man. Nowadays, you don't really get that unless you're the head of DC like James Gunn or something like that. You don't really get an auteur who is able to put his own individualistic imprint on that character. The campy factor and that kind of dialogue and that kind of comedy and that kind of goofiness is Sam Raimi. That is, if you watch his Evil Dead films, etc., if you look at the way those films and his style comes with sort of the editing or like the delivery of lines or the way, even the dynamic camera movement, and all, I think the Raimi films, particularly the first two, walk a line between almost becoming what the modern day blockbuster for superhero films were, but also retaining some of that campy sort of idealistic qualities that were so prevalent with superheroes and comic book culture before its time as well. And I think it strikes such a great balance between the two. And for me, nowadays, you only really get comic book films and superhero films that play to the audience's sort of kind of taste. This is why Marvel have such a problem when they make films, because they create a film, they create a story, and then you can feel when you go to watch a Marvel film, this line was just added in for comedic effect. This line was... With the Raimi films, everything is contained and everything feels like what those kind of characters would say in the moment. Yeah, sure, some of them are like quippy and some of them are like sort of for comedic relief, but it doesn't take you out of the film. It is all still prescribed within the tone that he has set with those films. That's what I feel. So I think another conversation I had was like whether or not Tobey Maguire is a good sort of Spider-Man, does he do justice to the character?
Yeah.
Again, I think when we talk about superhero films and we talk about superhero depictions, we have to analyze them in the context of those films. This is why people are like coming out, oh my God, Robert Pattinson's the best Batman, Ben Affleck's the best Batman, they would like beat the shit out of Christian Bale. Yeah, of course they would, because look at Nolan's universe versus look at Snyder's universe. They're two completely different things. I think Tobey Maguire and that world Sam Raimi created, when I turn those films on, I'm immediately absorbed by that. I'm not thinking about anything else. Or for me, all of those decisions feel, or most of those decisions feel, true to the character and true to that world that he's created. Which is why I don't believe that the films are necessarily bad. I think if you want to talk about technical craft, I mean, Spider-Man 2, let's take Spider-Man 2 for example. I think you mentioned like the costuming and whatever. I think Spider-Man 2 is a classic example of how to do forget about superhero films, just blockbusters in general, the harmony between real practical effects and CGI. Like the train fight between Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man is still to this day like the gold standard of superhero film action sequences. I dare anyone to like literally name like of sequences in superhero films that are better than that one train fight. The way that the whole sequence is visually depicted, the emotion you feel behind the character. I'm literally going like a full spoiler.
No, I can name.
But like when we sat down, and not to go on a tangent, but when we sat down and I said, "Can you name me some other superhero films better?"
Yeah.
Let's
wait. Let me
okay,
first.
sure.
I want to ask you a question though, because there is a lot of what you're saying that I agree with, and there is a point that. Let's say, I agree with the campiness is a tonal choice. The directing is conscious
but
of the time.
So you don't believe that?
No. I do.
Okay.
That's why I'm like, that's why I said I started in the beginning. I said they're objectively bad. I overspoke. They are objectively mid in my opinion. Because let's say, all of what you're saying is true. It's a choice. It works. I enjoy them, etc. Why is it good? Why is the writing? Because Spider-Man 2 is considered one of the best superhero films of all time by a lot of people.
So do you want me to tell you why I think
why is it because we're talking
why is
about
objectively one of the best superhero films
exactly, because that's the point, right? Objectivity. And I'm like, objectively, because my point is that objectively, if you look at the things that make Spider-Man 2, let's say Spider-Man 2, we have I'm gonna say the technical stuff, we have then the writing, the directing, the acting, and the story.
Are you saying are not?
No, I think most of those are perfectly fine, and that's why I'm saying it's objectively mid. But what if that is objectively great? Because you're saying like a tonal choice, is that it's campy, it exists in the world, etc. Sure, fair enough. But there's a lot of films that make tonal choices to be campy, and that's the vibe of the film.
Okay, you made a point earlier about the films feeling simplistic, having simplistic plots.
And
Why is that bad? Why is that objectively mid?
We've spoken about this a lot before, and I consider that a film, because of the art form that it is, needs to carry thematic depth to be considered great.
Yep.
And that was the exact key phrasing. Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
But but you don't
I
believe
think-
simplistic plots can do that.
Well, I mean, they could, but I think Spider-Man doesn't.
You don't think Spider-Man carries any sort of
I
thematic?
think it carries thematic depth, but not to the point where it can be considered great in its thematic depth and like the themes that it carries, the analysis that it carries, and things like that.
Okay, right.
Great is the point. It's
okay.
That's my point. It's perfectly fine. Like, it has depth, it has themes, the characters grow and things like that. But to me, to consider a film objectively great amongst all of the other things, directing, writing,
Okay.
etc., it needs to have something that you think about, some
Alright,
theme
okay.
that, and it needs to
Alright.
emotionally impact you.
Understood.
Go on.
Understood. Understood.
crazy.
So Spider-Man 2
Yeah.
is the first time and one of the only times in the superhero blockbuster climate where we have seen the hero wrestle with the idea of being the hero, right? Does Peter Parker be the spider or does he be the man, right? The entire film, this guy takes shit from every single but like he literally cannot catch a break.
Yeah.
Most of the time in superhero films, we're used to seeing the hero sort of just kind of figure out ways to overcome, most of the time, physical obstacles with sort of some sort of a metaphorical story going on. For example, in like Iron Man 2, Iron Man 2 has to physically best Mickey Rourke's villain character, but he's also a character who's wrestling with like the effects of alcoholism, etc. So that's what I mean. Spider-Man 2 is one of the only superhero films that genuinely, literally depicts what if a superhero as prominent as Spider-Man decided to put down the mask, but to take off the costume and try and lead an ordinary life, right? I remember watching that as a kid and still watch it and be like, hang on one second, he's not, you're telling me he's not gonna, he's not gonna be, it asks the question, does the hero's value come from the life he wants to create for himself or the life that he's been entrusted this huge responsibility with, right? The entire film, from the start of the film, he's working at this pizza place. He's getting shit. He gets fired. He sees the woman he loves basically been taken away by someone else. He loses his best friend. The entire time, that character is faced and obstacles are thrown with against him the entire way through. Conflict is there the entire time. And he's wrestling with this idea, like I've just said. And then he decides to stop being Spider-Man. He decides to stop being Spider-Man. And then he sees the effects of this, what happens. Simultaneously, you have one of the most complex, I would say, villains in Dr. Octopus, played amazingly well by Alfred Molina, and someone who is also wrestling with the idea of responsibility to a certain extent, but being the victim of his own creation, essentially. It's this typical kind of mad scientist sort of arc, but also but applied to like kind of the superhero formula. The two are linked intrinsically because Peter Parker knows Dr. Octavius, so there is a personal attachment between the hero and the villain, like there was in Spider-Man 1, as there was in Spider-Man 3 as well. So you're having this, not only the duality between Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but you're also having this almost weird duality going on between the hero and the villain, which is something we don't really get in superhero films. We just have those arcs going sort of separate from each other, and then in the end, they kind of just collide in one big battle, and it never really feels earned. These two basically have confrontations throughout the film, and every single time it grows and grows and grows, physically and from a technical craft, but also from your emotional investment in it. I could go on. I mean, the score is amazing. It's fantastic music.
Amazing, yeah.
The direction is fantastic. It's one of the only superhero films, or one of the few superhero films that feels, again, like I said, that there's a genuine artistic voice behind it. If you take Sam Raimi and you take something like the hospital scene in Spider-Man 2, I remember watching that as a kid and being genuinely terrified because, of course, his directing roots comes from the horror genre. The studio was like, yeah, go have fun, man. When do you ever get to see that? I remember, like, if you watch that scene, it's something taken straight out of a fucking horror slasher film.
Yeah.
And every time I go back to those films, or even that film particularly, I'm like reminded of almost like the sadness of a lot of like what we have lost in sort of corporatizing the genre Genuinely, I genuinely feel that. And again, I employ everyone to go back and genuinely, but like Tobey Maguire, I don't think Tobey Maguire is a fantastic actor. I'll give you that. I don't think he's a fantastic actor. But again, in the context of that story, I think he works. Dude, I think he works. I genuinely feel sorry for the guy every single time.
I don't mind him as Spider-Man. Like, because of the tonal like decisions that Raimi makes. I don't think he's very good, but he does work. I will give you that. In the world that he's building, he does work.
So then how is that relevant to the film? Because you just said that he works in the context of that. How does that...
Yeah, but is he objectively a good actor?
No, but that's not what we're asking. We're talking... You just said those films... Yeah. We're not talking about whether or not...
Well, no, but we're talking about if the films are... That's the point, is that are they... What defines them as objectified?
But you just said he works in the context of those films.
Yeah.
So what more is there to say on whether or not it works or not?
But like... I don't understand the question because Megan Fox works in the context of Jennifer's body, but that doesn't make her a good actress. I
think actually that's Megan Fox's best performance.
I agree, but she's still not good in it.
I mean, she's but that film is like hella campy and stuff as well. Like, I think she's actually pretty good in Jennifer's. I'll be honest, she's not good in like Transformers. Yeah. When she's in Transformers,
but okay, when her scenes come on,
they're incredibly distracting.
But it's the exact same. It's the exact taking it to the next level. It's the exact same example because Megan Fox's performance kind of works in the context of Transformers. It does. Like that's the vibe of Transformers.
Okay, it works in the context. Those films. Good? No, but like. They technically work because she's incredibly sexualized. The way that those scenes work around her,
No. Her acting itself, like the way she is with what's his name with Wiki, like Shia LaBeouf, it works in the context in the film.
What you're saying is basically an actor basically saying a line versus an actor genuinely giving a performance.
If you take a scene that is super cliche, super campy, and you shoot that scene with with kind of committing to the medium or with self-irony to the medium, that doesn't change the fact that this scene was written simplistic and cheesy. It doesn't, You can commit to it, but do you know what I mean? And at least that's how I perceive it.
Okay, so we were talking about performances beforehand, and a bad performance most of the time, more or less means you don't really buy them as the character.
Well, performance is really difficult to quantify. I agree with that because the way we perceive acting is so instinctive. Like you view acting and it's so difficult to say they were a good actor because. But yes, technically, I would say you believe the character or you believe that this person is experiencing real emotion and real things.
So do you not believe that when you watch Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man films? Because if you said that he works in the context of those films, but what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that you don't believe him, but he's like saying the line, so it's fine? Or do you mean like, hang on, I don't actually really believe that he's going through that peril. I don't actually really believe that he's going through...
I don't actually really believe every emotion that he gives me, but I think the fact that I don't believe every emotion that he gives me works in the context of the film.
Why does it work in the context of the film?
Because that's the tonal decision that Raimi makes all throughout. It's slightly ironic, slightly campier, slightly like different.
So when you watch those films, are you are you taken out when certain things happen? For example,
no, I'm not taken out, but that's not where that's completely different from what defines them as objectively whatever good or bad. Because you can be I am fully invested in a lot of films I consider to be, and not even I consider, a lot of films that are objectively bad.
Okay, sure. But would you not argue that all that really kind of matters, especially in a genre like comic book films, all that really matters to a certain degree is whether or not you buy them as the character?
Sure, 100%.
So how can you say then like it's objectively bad?
Because there is the way that we perceive something as a moviegoer or as a just general audience member. Because it's the same reason why we watch reality TV. Completely different, obviously. I'm not saying that's to the same level of bad, but reality TV, is that objectively good media? No. But we watch it because we're fully invested. It's for fun. It's something to put on. So the way we define art as whether it's objectively good, bad, great, mid, is not dependent on the way that we perceive it. Because we make conscious choices all the time to watch things that are not great. As we make conscious choices to not watch things that are great because they're too heavy, because there's that. So
this is an interesting point because you brought in reality TV shows. But this is perfectly illustrates what I'm trying to say, is you cannot compare reality TV to film. They're two completely separate mediums. Yes, they still use sound, cameras, and and scripts and dialogue, etc. But you cannot compare. You cannot compare them.
Okay.
Just like
She-Hulk.
What about it?
She-Hulk.
I haven't actually seen the entire thing.
Okay, She-Hulk is not a good show by a lot of factors.
I have. This is what I've heard. Yes.
By a lot of definitions, it's just not a good show. I think like anybody who understands, like not even film, anybody who kind of watches stuff can agree based on what their experiences, what their understanding of the medium of film is, can say, okay, that is not a good show. A lot of people put it on because it's fun. But that doesn't define it's good, like how good it is. Because when we were talking the other day, we were talking about what defines objective. How can we get the closest to it? And we disagree on which metric to use closest. And I think audience, like if we look at Rotten Tomatoes, you've got your audience score and your critic score. To me, I'm not the biggest fan of Rotten Tomatoes. I don't really agree with the critic score a lot, but the critic score is a closer representation of the objective quality of a film than the audience score, because you can put a film on for 100,000 people and out of them 90,000 don't really watch movies. They will base that completely on their own enjoyment, on their own personal experiences.
Right.
You take a film like Anyone But You, Sydney Sweeney, Glenn Powell, objectively quite a, like, I wouldn't even say, I mean, it's not good. It's below mid, right? People love that film. I enjoyed watching that film. You know what I mean? But that doesn't define its artistic quality or its quality within the film medium.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We will get on into sort of the IMDb.
Sorry, I skipped ahead.
No, it's okay. But again, going back to the whole idea, about on the Sam Raimi films, for example. You're saying you buy Tobey Maguire and whatever, and you buy that world. You're invested in that world. When you turn it on, you know, you're there, etc. But then you also say they're not, you know, objectively good.
Great,
good films.
Good, yeah.
I can see what you mean by in the terms of like you can watch something and kind of believe all the aspects, but also realize like there's still something missing there for me. Correct? When you talk about performance, for example, it's difficult to talk about this in terms of like the superhero genre versus other genres, because usually what we attribute to a good performance is something like a Daniel Day-Lewis or something with a role that has a lot more layers to it, or films that are more on the basis of character studies that really allow an actor to showcase their acting ability. Whereas when you look at something like superhero films, typically speaking, with a few exceptions, those characters and the way they're written, especially not just superhero films, blockbusters, they are not permitting or necessarily allowing those actors to showcase all of their acting ability. Again, I don't think Tobey Maguire is a great actor.
What about just believability in the moment?
Yes,
know?
and I think fundamentally, whether or not you're giving a good performance in a comic book film that is determined by whether or not I can really believe you as that character. I think I can. You just said you can. So I'm really, like, this is what I'm trying to say.
No, I said that he doesn't take me out of it. And I said that the choices that are made, which I actually don't even think that, I don't think Tobey Maguire comes in and is like, I'm going to act this slightly off or slightly campy because it works in the vibe of Sam Raimi. I think that's just his understanding.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to speak for Tobey Maguire. I think it's fine, it's believable. But if you just isolate it as a performance, it's not, to be honest, I don't even think it's bad. I think it's not great, but it's not bad. It's
But why would you do that? Why would you isolate the performance? If we're talking about something like we're not like, this is my point. When we talk about films, I cannot have the same approach of breaking down a comic book film than I can Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. They come under, even though there are some commonalities between how we can talk about those films, for example, the technical aspects, etc. The way those films are constructed are completely different, as are a lot of films, but specifically we're isolating superhero films. Well, they come under a different set of rules than when you look at them versus this is why you can give an Infinity War and Endgame 5 stars, but you can also give like Scorsese's Goodfellas a 5 stars. I
don't isolate them in the discussion that we're having, because if we're isolating them and if we're looking at the superhero medium, then yes, Spiderman 2 is an objectively good film within the superhero medium.
So
I agree with you there.
So are you saying then superhero films, some superhero films, they can't be good films because they're limited by the genre? Is that
Absolutely
what you're saying?
No. I'm saying if we are splitting it by genres, then you're taking, because of what I said, right? The way to perceive objectivity is understanding of the medium. So if we take film as the medium and we compare Spider-Man 2 to all of the things we understand about what can make a good film, that's the discussion we're having. But if we take Spider-Man 2 and we compare it to all the things that we perceive can make a good superhero film, that's a different discussion.
What's the difference between a good superhero film and a good film?
I mean, but do you get what I'm saying though? Like you compare it to the things like a good superhero film.
But is that not to a certain extent what you do when you go to watch a superhero film?
What you think of it within the superhero genre?
Yeah.
I think of it within film.
Really?
That's the discussion we're having though.
Really?
Well, it's the same as like when you go and watch a blockbuster. Are you comparing it to other blockbusters or are you comparing it to other films?
There's a subconscious level of doing both. That's what I think.
agree there.
That's what I think.
That's why I'm saying like Spider-Man 2 compared to the other like superhero films, pretty good. Compared to other films and our understanding of the medium, mid.
Yeah, but so this is what my question is to you is like, why can't the great superhero films be great films?
They can but Spider-Man 2 is not one of them.
But but you agree that Spider-Man 2 is one of the great superhero films? Yes or no?
I agree that it's a good superhero film.
Okay, let's talk about some of the great superhero
Logan.
films. Okay, Logan is great. Why is Logan great? Can I tell you why we all think it's great why it's amazing? Because for example, Logan is an example of a superhero film that isn't necessarily confined to the what we would typically associate with the genre. Logan is very much, in a lot of ways, sort of a character study to a certain extent. It does have elements of superhero action, etc., particularly towards the end. But I think what they do in that film, different to other superhero films, is they prioritize telling a very kind of isolated sort of human story that one would kind of expect to see in a kind of as a drama film or something like that. The superhero-ness isn't the front and center of the film.
I mean, I could say, now I'm going to say Dark Knight, and you're going to say the same thing. Dark Knight is like a spy action sort of film that takes the superhero.
Well, it does,
aspect.
Is it not?
I mean, it does, but we define it as a superhero film. No, because it has a superhero in it.
Exactly.
That is what that ultimately that is what defines a superhero film.
Exactly.
It's about a superhero.
Well, yeah, but this is what I mean. But I'm talking about, like, when you talk about superhero films, I'm not talking about just the idea of because it has a Batman or just
now you're putting it in such a tiny little box. Like you're saying, we're talking about superhero films that fit within a specific genre that follow specific things.
I said typically associated with a specific genre. There are of course outliers with films like The Dark Knight. Whereas Nolan, if you look at Nolan, he's not really interested in being like all the other superhero films.
Yeah.
He's like this is what I'm talking about, like relating back to the whole artistic voice side. The Dark Knight is, yes, it's a film with Batman in it and the Joker in it and etc. But at the end of the day, it is like the fundamentals of that film is like a crime drama, not the superhero theatrics, right? The reason why it's great and it's a great superhero film is because it has a great balance of those two things.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yep.
If you, I assume you, in your opinion, you think that superhero films that, let's really define it, right? That follow specific superhero film genre beats.
Yep.
Can be great films, correct?
Absolutely.
Why is it that currently in modern cinema we're moving further and further away from that? Why is it that new superhero films are becoming more like The Dark Knight, more like Logan?
So say that again.
They're making, like, the superhero genre is changing, where superhero films are no longer following those superhero genre beats. They are now making the Batman, right? It failed, but Eternals is a good example, where they try and change the genre because of what we perceive as objectively great.
Eternals is not a good film.
No, I agree, but I give it as an example of the way that it's changing.
But I think that's always what superhero films have been, is when we talk about superheroes, a lot of us immediately think about the MCU. I'm talking about the sort of conglomerate that is the majority of superhero films. If you look at all superhero films come out in the last 5 years, I bet you, like, there's 4, 5, 6 of those out of like 20 that are the more auteur-driven pieces. That is not a...
but my point, the question I'm asking is, you get 4, 5, 6 now. Back in 2019s, you were getting none. So now we're pushing towards this change.
Yeah.
Why?
Because people are getting tired of the same old stuff.
Or is it that I'm not saying this as a statement, I'm asking you, or is it that simply that makes the film better?
What?
Well, I mean, following those like more dramatic, more heavy, more thematic beats, that makes the film better than following the superhero genre plot.
I don't necessarily agree. I think, again, like something like the Batman is still a superhero film because it has Batman in it. But it is also more along the lines of like a detective noir
Of
film,
course,
right?
and that's what I mean. That's happening more and more and more.
Yeah, because the industry is moving towards that, because for such a long period of time, for about 20 years now or 15 years now, we have been getting the same type of corporatized films. I don't believe the Spider-Man films, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, are in that category. I think they are separate from what the majority of the MCU have done. The MCU basically produces films. Now they're not doing it so much because they're like seeing like box office results going down and superhero fatigue. But I wouldn't put those Spider-Man films in the same necessarily. I think they're above what the MCU has
Sure,
done.
but do you get my point? Is that the medium is changing because we're getting we're understanding what defines the film as good or bad better. So that's why.
This
That's
is interesting.
also
So
why
I think what we are trying to say. I think I've kind of cracked it. Basically, what you're saying is, you don't believe the Raimi Spider-Man. Let's just take Spider-Man 2 for example. Let's hone it down to Spider-Man 2.
For the record, Spider-Man 2 is the toughest to debate because it is the best of the three, but go on.
Spider-Man, let's say Spider-Man 1 or 2. You don't, basically what you're saying is...
Spider-Man 1, let's take Spider-Man 1.
Okay, let's do Spider-Man 1. You wouldn't put Spider-Man 1... You would rather attribute Spider-Man 1 to let's say the vast majority of MCU films than you were to those more separate auto-driven superhero films.
Correct.
And the difference here is, I don't know if I would.
Interesting.
I think... on paper, it has a lot of the elements, again, of what you'd come to expect in the superhero genre.
Yeah.
A lot of the classic sort of tropes, etc. But I think that the story and the way those films are created and the quality of those films sets it above the majority of what we have come to define corporate superhero films. That's the difference.
Let me ask you this, out of curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 1, you've never seen it, comes out today. How do you think... Let's not say the general public, let's say, fans and like film goers, like kind of active film goers, critics, etc. How do you think they perceive it?
So if the exact same film.
I mean, but up the technical aspects, it looks good for today's standard, but it's shot by shot, line by line, exact same.
I think it's a great film.
You think people will like?
I think people will
like to the same level.
I can't tell you if they will like it for this to the same level. I don't know. I don't know what the film.
This is where I disagree completely. I think it will bomb.
So you think Spider-Man 1, if it was up to the technical prowess of films being directed
and came out today, would not be liked. Correct.
Why don't you think it would be?
Because I mean that's exactly what we've been talking about the whole episode. Is like I think it doesn't hold up in a lot of its directorial choices, acting, writing, etc. I also think now...
In other words, it's aged badly. You keep saying hold up, which basically means those elements...
I will paraphrase. A lot of its writing, directing, and acting is not good. And I think now we are getting also a sense of what a superhero film can be to be great. And I don't think if that came out today... I actually don't think people would hate it. I think people would still go. Because it's Spider-Man as well, but I don't think it would be like because.
So what now you're talking about is like the nostalgia effect,
of course,
correct?
And that's a massive effect for these specific films.
So would you not be able to attribute a lot of that to so many great
100%.
films that you consider to be great, separate from the whole
100%,
nostalgia?
and that's why you'd be surprised at what I consider great from back in the day.
Okay,
because a lot of it is nostalgia based. Absolutely.
So, for example, I'm literally trying to think I don't know.
God, okay.
So Back to the Future. Right? If Back to the Future came out, again, elevated with the technical craft and whatever, and those technical aspects are what the modern standard, do you think that film is bad today?
Is it releasing to the same, like, does it have as wide of a release?
Yeah.
I think it would not be. I think it would be kind of the same as Spider-Man, to be honest. Like, I don't think it would do amazing, but I don't think it would be considered bad either. I think people would go, but I think that one, even for the time, Back to the Future is very self-ironic. It's very self-aware, and that would translate a little bit better. Whereas Spider-Man 1, I think where we can agree is that the campiness is not really self-irony. It is the identity of the film. and I don't think that would be perceived that well today.
So basically what you're saying is modern audiences have grown away from those kind of campy, goofy...
No, not at all, but it's different because campy, where it's self-aware and it's campy, because we were talking about like the identity of Spider-Man is Sam Raimi's tonal decisions, right? Back to the Future is kind of a play on itself, whereas Spider-Man is not really a play on itself. It's different. It's a different example.
So again, this is what I think we're talking about here is... I will give you an example, a real life example of mine. So I have like my younger cousins, my sort of nephews, let's call them, around the ages of sort of 7, 8, right? A couple summers ago, we sat down and I asked AJ, who's like one of them, what's your favorite film? And he said Jurassic World. And I was like, interesting. I was like, funny, interesting. So why do you like Jurassic World? He's like, oh, it's because it's cool. It's because, same age as me, by the way, when I watched Jurassic Park, which is my all-time favorite film. I asked him like, what's so good about the film? He's like, oh, it's just cool. Da, 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 da. I think the difference is, and we're touching on an interesting topic. Does that mean that Jurassic World is better than Jurassic Park?
Are we basing this seriously off the opinion of like a
no?
kid?
So I'm trying to illustrate my point.
Because if you ask kids what's the film they consider best, they'll tell you like the fucking what's it called, the Minecraft movie right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my point is like, okay, maybe the Jurassic was a sort of bad example. I'm not talking about like the Minecraft stuff. I'm talking about the idea that people
current versus old.
Current versus old.
Oh, that's why.
And I don't believe.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with you saying.
Yeah.
I don't think the Sam Raimi films have aged well.
Yeah.
I do disagree with the idea that you can say that they are bad or mid or bad films, because if we'll get onto like general consensus and whatnot.
That's a great segue, because you're asking if a bunch of people say that their favorite film is this.
Yeah.
Does that in any way? And that's my opening statement, is the fact that objectivity can only be defined, quantifiable by people who have at least some sort of understanding of the medium when it's an artistic medium. Because like art is by definition subjective, but to get over that, to reach some sort of level of objectivity, you need understanding of the medium.
Wait, so have you never agreed with, have you always agreed with what critics have said?
Absolutely not, no.
Right, so but you would consider yourself as someone who has learned about this?
On the graph, if you put like 1,000 critics and you ask them to define whether a film is good or bad, on the graph more or less they will be. It's very rare that they will be, and it happens of course, but do you know what I mean?
So what would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, you would say critics have an objective, a tendency to have a more objective take on a film. So with that being
correct,
said,
yes,
what do you think they would say about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films?
Okay, this is why, and I knew this question would come, which is why I asked you if it came out today, right? Because the way it would be perceived today, I think if you're asking me what critics would say about it today, I think they would say it's okay. But the way, because we look at it with nostalgia, and because we're going to talk about Rotten Tomatoes, right? And if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, Spider-Man 2 has like 95%. That's because a lot of that is of the time as well.
Right, okay. But when was the first time you watched the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films?
Probably when it came out, 2000 and...
The first one came out in 2002.
2, right?
The second one came out in 2005.
I would have watched it when it came out.
Right.
Yeah.
So would those critics, no?
Sorry?
So would those critics, no?
Yeah.
Right. So what's the difference here, though?
20 years.
Yeah, but a lot of the same critics. So what? Okay, just out of curiosity.
But in those 20 years, our understanding, I'm not saying film has gotten better since 2005 necessarily, but our understanding of film has grown a lot.
I'm sure 100%.
And I'll even like scratch that statement. Our understanding of superhero film has grown the most it ever has.
Yeah, but Mickey, this is my point. Like I could name, like, there are so many great films from like the golden era of cinema or whatever, that if you put in today's climate, they wouldn't be perceived as well. But does that make them objectively bad or mid films? I just don't think so. I think the statement here that we both actually agree on is this film hasn't aged as well. It doesn't mean that they are bad films, but more so some elements have aged poorly that allow me to perceive the film differently than how I used to. And I don't think it holds up quite as well. That is a fair statement. If you want to say that, that's great. But to say something is objectively bad would mean that the story is bad, the characters are bad, the you don't believe the world that they have created. All of those facts, all of those things, we have both agreed on. So my point to you is, I don't understand how then you can say those Raimi films are bad, because it's like saying like, oh, you know, City of Lights, Charlie Chaplin, right? And you made that film today, or if that film was, you know, put out in cinemas today, would it have the same critical reception as it did back in the 20s? Of course it wouldn't. Like, it's the same. You could say that about any kind of.
But if you take, again, I keep talking about this, but the writing, the directing, the acting, the technical things, they're all, like, if you compare it to things even of the time of 2005, compared to Lord of the Rings, does that hold up to the same level of great?
Again, I can't compare Spider-Man 2 necessarily to Lord of the Rings.
But I agree with you there. Like, yes, if you compare it to superhero films, if you compare it to superhero genre films, it is objectively good. I agree with you there. But that's not what I define as objectivity. I look at it as the whole medium of film.
Okay. What would you give something like, what would you give 21 and over out of 10? What would you give 21 and over out of 10?
Are you asking me?
Give me both scores. Give me both scores.
All right. I think as a film, I would like as like
objectively,
okay, I would give it like a 4 out of 10.
A 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right.
As enjoyable, like as fun. What I would put on my letterbox, I would give it like a 7.5.
Okay. Fine.
But if you ask me, is that a objectively good film? I would tell you, I think it's objectively a mid film in a very different way than Spider-Man.
Why is it a very different way?
Because we take certain like different factors to define it. We compare it within.
This is exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
We look at something like Spider-Man 2 differently to something like Lord of the Rings.
Okay, let me paraphrase then. If you ask me, is it an objectively good mainstream comedy? Yes, it's objectively a great mainstream comedy. But that genre needs to be compared to the whole understanding that we have of film. Because film is one. It's not reality TV. Film is one.
So this
and
is
all film steals from other film.
This
right?
is
Superhero film is dependent on the way that comedy film is going, which is dependent on this, which is dependent on that. You know what I mean?
This is
like
this is what I think we massively.
You can have a great comedy that is objectively a great film, or you can have a good comedy that is not a good film, but that is, you know, fun and entertaining.
Okay, so basically, a good comedy versus a good film. A good comedy. What's a good what's a good comedy?
What's a good or what's a great comedy?
What would you define as a good comedy? Like a great comedy? No, as in like, how would you define it? What does a film need to be a good comedy?
I mean, that's like, there's many like factors that it needs to follow. It needs to follow the same exact things that you would consider a good film to have. For it to be a good comedy, it needs to, of course, be funny, and then it also needs to have a good story, have good writing, have good, etc. All of that, like, there's certain things that film is just, they are in the medium. They're not dependent on genre. But a good comedy also needs to be obviously funny, and it needs to like be probably follow specific beats that comedy would, that I don't really know enough to talk about. Like, it needs to follow like the rule of three.
Would you say a great comedy is a good film?
Yes.
You would say that. Would you say a good comedy is a good film?
It depends on the film, but it can be.
But what's the difference between those two things? A good comedy and a great comedy?
It's the same as what's the difference between a good superhero film and a great superhero
Which
film.
is what?
Which is all of the things we've been talking about. It's the thematic depth. It's that, yes, you can have writing that is good, but is the writing great? You know, you can have a film that has really good VFX, but is the VFX great to consider that film with great VFX? You know what I mean?
So I think basically what me and you have, like, I think what we are actually disagreeing on is when I go to see a certain film, you know, I come with a certain level of expectations depending on maybe the genre of the film, your preconceived notions of what you might think that film could be by the time you walk out of the cinema, right? If I go to a superhero film, let's name some of the great superhero films. I don't know, like or some of the most popular and sort of generally considered good superhero films. Let's say The Dark Knight, or let's say I'm really trying to think here. I don't know. Let's say an Infinity War.
Yeah, Endgame. Yeah.
Okay, so would you agree that an Infinity War 5 stars? So this is, I think, what we're trying to say is you would basically say, because you're taking film as a whole, Infinity War 5 stars is the same as like Everything Everywhere All at Once 5 stars, because you say you class it all.
If I were to give both 5 stars, yes.
So you so
if I were to give them.
so what would you give them?
I would probably give like. They are pretty equal in terms of quality in my eyes, actually, but probably Everything Everywhere is better.
So you would consider Infinity War on the same level as
I don't understand how you don't understand. But let's say the game you play, for example, right?
Yeah.
This or that.
Yep.
You take films and you go, what's better, Infinity War and Everything Everywhere? You're not saying, oh, I can't decide because they're in different genres. You say one is better than the other.
Exactly, because we're talking about the genre specific.
No, but you're saying that they're completely different, so they're not like comparable at all. I'm saying that they belong in one medium, so they are comparable.
So my basically what I'm trying to say is,
Yeah.
irrespective of genres and irrespective of whatever, how I would how I would rate film
Yeah.
depends on how fulfilled or satisfied I am at the end of watching the film. You cannot compare. My point is, like, when you go to a superhero film, you look for different things than you do when you go to see a Martin Scorsese film. You look for different things. Both films could be a 5-star film.
Mm-hmm.
By your logic, of course, Scorsese's film is going to be better, but that does not mean the superhero film is not a 5-star film. It just means you had a similar level, or you feel a similar sense of fulfillment after you've watched those films. That is why I say you cannot compare a 5-star genre horror film or 4-star genre horror film to a 4-star, I don't know, Bradley Cooper Oscar campaign. Like, they come under.
I think you're really trying to split it way too much. There are things in film that are like
there are. Yeah, but
every film does
there
them.
are.
Every film has a fucking script. You know what I mean? Every film has acting.
Of course,
every film has themes that explores. Like, you can't split it all up.
No.
A good film can be a good film because it's a good film, not a good horror film or etc.
No,
you know what I mean?
Of course, I'm not saying that. I'm basically trying to say to you is, I don't go into every film being like, right, I'm watching a horror film tonight, I'm going to have to criticize it based on the horror genre. It's just something that naturally comes. It's just something that naturally comes, right?
I think The Hangover, I give 5 stars on Letterboxd. Do I think it's as good objectively as a Martin Scorsese film? No. But it's also, yes, I agree, the way we define it is based on personal experience, but that is what defines objectability, is like, I think we have an understanding of the medium that allows me to say Hangover is fucking amazing, I give it 5 stars. But if I really sit down and you ask me what's the better film, I'm not going to say Hangover, you know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
That's the whole point, is like that
course.
You need that knowledge, because if you put Hangover and
But why does it matter?
Because we're talking about objectivity. If you put Hangover and Irishman to 1,000 random moviegoers, what are they going to say is the better film?
Probably The Hangover.
Do you think that's right?
No, I don't.
There we go. Because you have a better understanding of the medium.
No. So
yes,
100%. this is what I think we were getting onto.
Yeah.
Is critics, I think we can both agree, have more of an ability to objectively assess whether or not a good film is, because A, they've experienced more films, they have more things to compare it to.
That's not what you were saying when the night we were arguing.
No. We were talking about we were talking about data. We're talking about data. So basically, my understanding is, if we're looking at just straight data, and we're not talking about me or you or films that I would ask for recommendations or films that you would ask for recommendations, but instead an average person in the world, we're talking about like just normal data. This is what I think the interesting discussion is if you showed, you just said The Irishman versus The Hangover.
Yeah.
If you showed
100,000 random people,
100,000 random people would probably rate The Hangover
100%.
The Hangover better than The Irishman.
Facts.
Why do you think that is?
Because people, the point is that people need understanding of the medium to define whether something is objectively good or bad. Hangover versus Irishman, people base that on the fun they had, the enjoyment they had, the emotion it brought them, was it boring or not, etc. You need a certain level, I'm not saying you need to really know film, but you need to at least appreciate film to like, and that's, a lot of people are like that. A lot of people really like good movies to be like, okay, The Irishman is a really good movie. So that's the example, is if you put The Hangover, people have fun, it's a great comedy, they will say it's better. Does that make it objectively better? No, because you need the understanding to know that Irishman is better.
can I just say, I want to preface by saying I do think The Irishman is better than The Hangover.
Which is, by the way, the whole point of this. The fact that you're prefacing it is the whole point of this. Like, we have an understanding of the medium, so if you put The Hangover to 100,000 people, they will say that The Hangover is better. Does that make it objectively better? Is that your point?
To us, yes, The Irishman is an objectively to us.
But no, let's not say we. Okay, let's. I'll give you a better example, right? 10,000 random people off the street.
Yep.
You give them Hangover, Irishman. What do they say is better?
Probably The Hangover.
Right. 10,000 random film critics. What do they say is better?
The Irishman.
Right. Which opinion would you say has more weight?
In the initial sample data, are critics involved in the sample data? So out of those
what do you
10,000 random people, are there critics amongst that, or is that
there are as many?
strictly? Was that strictly people who are not?
There
critics?
are as many critics as there would be otherwise within us. So if you have one critic per 1,000 people in the world, then you have 10 critics in the 10,000 people. Do you get me?
So again,
I just answered the question. Which opinion has more value?
Which opinion has more value?
Which group do you trust more?
Which do I personally trust more? Critics.
Yes. Okay, there we go.
Because
Why?
My taste and my understanding of films, I would say, is probably more aligned with that of someone who is a critic.
But do
who
you
thinks like a critic.
think that the opinion that people who, let's not even say random people, like let's not say average moviegoers, let's say random people who never watch movies, do you think that opinion of a medium that as complex as film has as much weight as the opinion of people who spend their lives studying film?
So this is where I disagree with you. I think that yes, on a sort of a kind of formal level, yes, someone who has studied the industry and the art form more, who has a greater understanding of something, obviously automatically their opinion on something might be more well-rounded, more articulate, more whatever. My point here is, even though I agree with that, I don't think it actually matters. I don't think it matters, because when you make a film like The Hangover and you make a film like The Irishman, Martin Scorsese does not make The Irishman specifically for critics. He makes it for everyone, for everyone who can go and sit in a cinema and watch it. You cannot have film that secludes, people. Yes, there are different genres like art house genres that general audience members don't.
But do you think an art form as complex as film can be like quantifiable purely on the emotional response that it gives us?
It has to be, bro.
I disagree.
It has to be. That's the whole thing.
You can include so much in a film.
Of course you can.
A film can and should, if you ask me, be so much more than just the emotional response.
Of course it should.
Because you can make the funniest film, and if it's absolute fucking dog shit in its story and everything else, that's not a good film.
But it doesn't. No. It doesn't matter though. If you went to see that film and it made you howl with laughter,
I disagree.
Fundamentally, to an average person, that's all that matters.
I disagree.
That's all that matters.
It needs to have a certain level of quality. It needs to have that to be considered good.
But this is my point. Is like, because that statement is trying to reach an impossible standard, because objectivity doesn't. You could have 100 critics, right, who watch a film, an Academy Award film. Let's say 80% of them love the film, 20% don't like the film. They're all still critics.
But they're all still critics. We're really taking it, because when you get into those circles, you disagree a lot more based on like different factors and so on. If we're talking like literally, the example we're giving is like, let's say the Minecraft movie, right?
Yeah.
The Minecraft movie, dog shit, right?
I haven't seen it, but yeah, I would probably
like,
say,
I'm sorry, but it's not like, okay, I think, sorry, but even the people who made it, right? You make it for a specific crowd, right? But people enjoy that film a lot.
Do they? Okay.
You cannot define its quality based on its enjoyment.
I'm not defining its quality.
But that's what you're saying, is that you can define its quality. You're saying if a film was enjoyed by all, then it's objectively good. I disagree completely.
Okay, so
a film needs to have way more.
So this is what I wanted to discuss. So the difference here is those critics have an understanding of the film, whereas general audiences, they might see films every now and then, whatever, but they don't have quite an articulate level of thing. My point is, fundamentally, even though I'm technically in this space and I do this, and I from time to time get very passionate about the things I'm talking about, and like, your opinion is fucking, I don't say this to people, but like we've all had people like we listen to, like, what the fuck are you on about? Like, of course that film was shit or bad. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. What matters is when someone goes to watch a film, whether or not that person feels fulfilled and has taken something away from that. It doesn't matter if the film has like X, Y, and Z fucking amazing, like Roger Deakins on cinematography or Hans Zimmer or John Williams on a score. It doesn't fucking matter. What matters fundamentally when you go to watch a film, and directors will say this when they put films out, is they hope that as many people watching their movies can emotionally connect.
So why are directors not making things that are simply for that? That's not what directors do, though. That is one
a lot of directors do. Most directors do. The directors we often like talking about and discuss, we like their films because at this point we have got a certain level of understanding.
And I think you need. That's my point. Is you need that level of understanding to judge film as a medium. Because I agree with you. There is so many, like, let's take a B-list action film that you like slap in the bottom of Netflix where we would never find it, but like average moviegoers would find it. And that's the sort of film that is like you put on like a Thursday night, you have your food, and it's like people fighting. A lot of people will find the people who watch that will find enjoyment from it. But film, there is so much to this medium. Like you cannot base it just on the emotional response. I agree with you. The emotional response is one of the absolute
I don't think you can. Again, let me clarify. I don't think you just judge a film on an emotional response, but I do think, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I do think that's the determining factor. I think if you go to watch a film, and all the technical aspects are amazing, and technically it's a 10 out of 10 in the lighting, it's a 10 out of 10 on the music, it's 10 out of 10 on the performances, a technically brilliant film, I don't think is a good film if the story and those characters, if I don't have a connection or if I don't feel something at the end of the film. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Bradley Cooper's Maestro, right, is a technically brilliant film. It's a brilliant film. The performances, Carey Mulligan's great, all the technical aspects of it. For some reason, when I watched it, I don't think that film is a good film because I didn't feel fulfilled at the end of it. I had a lot of problems with the story, a lot of problems with the creative, the narrative choices. Unfortunately, as much as I could admire those other aspects, I don't think it's a good film because fundamentally, if that story and those characters don't work, and I don't have that emotional reaction, just as a member of the general audience probably won't have that emotional reaction, it's not a good film.
I think neither is the defining factor. Like you cannot define a good film by whether or not you had an emotional response, in the same way that you cannot define a film as good if you had the craziest emotional response ever. In the same way that if the film doesn't check off all the things it needs to check off on a technical writing, etc. level to be great, you need both. You need both.
Of course, and the great films and the best films
gives me an emotional response.
What?
Yeah.
Bro, we were trying to fucking say this from the start. I was trying to get you to say this from the start. What do you mean?
But that's what I mean. Objectivity is not defined on the emotional response it gives you.
You have an emotional response to Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't cry, but I'm like, oh, it's cool, you know what I mean? Yeah, I feel, I'm like, whoa, you know, like it's cool, but that doesn't define it as good.
Right, okay.
I have an emotional response to Hangover, you know what I mean? That's my whole point.
So this is now the crux of the thing.
I cried. The only film I've ever cried to, not the only film, but what, like, I really, really, really rarely cry at films. And like, the only film I remember, like, as an adult, bawling my eyes out is Marley and Me. Is Marley and Me the best film I've seen?
No, of course not.
But that's what you're saying. You're defining it on like the emotional response you're getting.
No. I'm not saying a purely emotional response. I'm saying that if the film fundamentally, I think, first of all, we do this we talk about movies all the time. Unfortunately, none of this matters. None of what I say about a film matters to you.
You like what you like.
You like what you like. It doesn't matter if I think a film is shit. If you got something out of the film,
I agree there.
Who am I to tell you?
I agree there.
Who am I to tell you? Yeah. I just think, generally speaking,
this is just a philosophical debate on the concept of it.
Bro, there's like 2 people watching it. They've all checked out.
By the end of this.
My point
and thank you.
My point is, what I'm saying is, great films, good films, great films. I don't think it's possible for you to have a good film or an objectively good film or considered good or great film, and it doesn't fulfill you.
I just disagree there. I do.
So you hang on.
I just disagree. I have a lot, but maybe it's a personal thing because a lot of people, like I know people personally,
we go to films for different things.
Because I know people who don't have an emotional response to films, but they still think films are great.
Who doesn't have an emotional response?
I mean, you don't know all my friends.
No, so
Object with a good example.
Sure.
Not. So, for example, I think
Yeah.
Social Network is a technically brilliant film.
Right.
I can see that it is objectively a great film. I have zero emotional response. I personally don't particularly like that film.
And do you consider it objectively great?
Well, yeah, that's
There
what
we
I
go.
would say.
There we go.
so you don't feel anything at all.
No, I don't like that film.
Why do you consider it objectively great? You consider it objectively great because
Because I can look at it and go, like, to be fair, like I'm
Can I tell?
in it,
Yeah.
and I can look at it and go, this is kind of annoying because you can't hear me. I just thought it was a good example,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you guys. I can watch it and go like, yeah, the acting's great. I'm kept in it. It's like upbeat, like it's very tight, like all of these things. But I come away having felt nothing. I'm like,
Have you never seen a film where you've been like, that was objectively great, but it's not my cup of tea?
Yeah, of course.
I have
of
that
course,
all the time.
Of course I have. Of course.
And then you still define it as objectively great, even though you're lacking that emotional response.
Of course, I can admire certain aspects about the film, and if I didn't feel something, I'm not going to give it like a 2 out of 10. I'm not going to do that. Of course, you. For me and you, because we've seen so many films at this point, of course you can go to a film and you look for different, like me, Dylan watching a film now is different to Dylan
Of
watching
course,
a film 10 years ago
100%,
because I'd
yeah.
have a better understanding of the thing right now. So I
Oh,
can
it's interesting. It's almost as if your understanding makes you view things in a more objective way.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying 15-year-old Dylan,
Yeah.
his opinion is still valid compared to 25-year-old Dylan.
Okay, but
I think-
which one do you trust more? Who do you think has
now
an opinion
because
that has more weight?
because I'm closer to what I am now. But fundamentally, my point is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I think a film is 7 out of 10 because it had amazing visuals, but it didn't give me much in terms of the story. It doesn't actually matter.
I think, this is where we agree to disagree, because I think it does matter. I think film needs to be kept at a high standard. We cannot define it just by something that gives you an emotional response.
This is where we disagree,
Yeah.
because I think that is integral
Of course.
to film criticism. Otherwise, we are just critiquing a material
But it's the same.
thing.
It's the same thing as like rating films based on, because like if you look at like a lot of people's letterboxes, like do you rate them based on what you objectively think that is, or do you rate them based on your opinion of the film?
I think it is. I think it is a
Well,
mix.
it
I think-
depends on the person, doesn't
I
it?
think when I rate films on
Yeah.
Letterboxd, it's a mix of how I feel about the film at the end
Mm.
and like the story, if I found it interesting, or like the technical crafts or whatever. I think it's a mix of things. However, However, if a film has great technical craft,
Yeah.
there will probably be a little bit of an emotional reaction.
You get how it's basically two different. What would you rate Social Network on Letterboxd?
I think I have rated.
You on your Letterboxd.
I think I have rated it. I don't know what I gave it. Probably something.
Shall I tell you right now? So Clara, in case no one heard that, Clara does not like the Social Network, but knows and considers it to be a great film because of the technical prowess and whatever. Now, I think Clara saying that now is a very different Clara to 2 years ago, because Clara initially was only rating films based on how she emotionally connected to it. If you go back on her letterbox, you will see the amount of great films. Did you
give it a 3?
Right. You will see the amount of great films Clara has rated above. But
you think it's a like you feel it's a 3, but you know it's like a 5.
Yeah.
Right. That's the point. Is like it's you need both things. They're completely different opinions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Like, you think it's a 5, right? But what's changed between now and then?
Well, no, but
I'm appreciating the filmmaking. I've watched more films, and I've watched more terrible films to understand that is actually quite a good one.
and also, when you say filmmaking, you don't just mean the lighting. You mean the entire process of the making of it.
Yeah, and I believe story is a huge part of that. So, like,
So you believe the story?
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right. Okay, when I say emotional reaction, I mean like how much. It's not just if I'm like crying at the end. It's basically saying, did that story make sense to me all the way through?
That's not what emotional reaction is. Emotional reaction is I was touched by this film.
So let me preface. When I say emotional, I'm basically confining all of that kind of. Basically, it's.
Sure. If that's how you define emotional reaction, did it make sense to me? Of course, I agree. But I thought what you were saying is like, did I watch it and I was like,
So-
you know,
so
then that's very different.
So no. Sorry, I should have probably explained better. But like basically, my point is, when I rate a film, or when I tell a person, or when I critique a film, I'm doing that based on purely how I feel, and the technical components are part of that. The characters are part of that. All of it is a completely collective and subjective feeling that I have. All I'm saying is, I don't think I can I can personally rate a film and give it close to top marks if it doesn't have some sort of fulfilling resonance there at all. Because you can go and be like, oh, fucking, I don't know, Radiohead makes amazing music, right? If I don't listen to Radiohead, then like it doesn't actually matter. Is my point. Like it's like a blanket statement. Oh yeah, that film was great, but it didn't really do anything for me. But I can appreciate it's a 5-star film, but it didn't really do anything for me. So then you're basically just saying a blanket. You're basically just saying what everybody else maybe might say about the craft, and it's an amalgamation of everything else, which is what I think Clara has basically done. Is the amount of films, the amount of great, truly great films that Clara slagged off before she was with me, and then I was rewatched and with a different perspective and a different kind of, because she's a different person. She's had a better understanding, but it doesn't make. I also think films change over time for people. You can have an appreciation,
Of course.
So, but it doesn't mean like you might love a film and then like 10 years later you come back to it and you're like, oh my god, that was shit. Because maybe the film has aged poorly or whatever. I think the great films like Spiderman 2 are irrespective of time, and you can watch it and basically give it an accolade of being a good film or great film irrespective of the time. That's what I think the great films are. This is my general problem with film criticism as a whole.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm guilty of doing it all the time as well, is people give high ratings to things, and they like, you're just doing it for the sake of, for what? Like, oh yeah, the cinematography was good. Okay, let's give it a star. Oh yeah, the music was good. Let's give it a star. Oh yeah, the acting was decent, I guess. Let's give it half a star. Oh yeah, I like this one scene. Let's give it another star. And then all of a sudden, it's like a 4-star film. But then, I didn't really feel anything though. But somehow it's like a 4.5 star.
I fully agree.
Like, it's just like, for me, it's just like, what? Like,
I agree there, and that's one of the reasons.
I think that is a complete. That's not how film criticism should necessarily be. That's what I just think it's a false way of talking about something. I think it's a very pretentious way of doing something. And yes, I'm also guilty of it. I'm saying this like I'm guilty.
I agree with that, and that's like one of the main reasons I don't actually rate on Letterboxd. And it's one of the reasons is because yes, of course, it actually started because I'm in the industry. I don't want people to see my lower reviews or whatever, right? But it is also because like I struggle with that. I'm like, okay, this film, I felt it was a 5, but then maybe it was a 4 or whatever. But I think here's a good point to kind of summarize and finalize my thought on it, is like there is a certain level of objectivity in cinema, or else the concept of film criticism wouldn't exist.
But this is what
for you to critique something, it needs to be objectifiable.
So So here's two different things. If in order for you to critique, it will be called
film opinionism. No. You know what I mean?
If you in order for you to critique something, it doesn't need to necessarily be objective. In order for you to quantify something with numbers, then it needs to be objective. Which is why I think
but a lot of criticism is like, maybe it's not quantifiable with numbers, but it's quantifiable with qualities and things that make it good, things like that. You know what I mean?
So this is what I'm saying. It's just like when you give that film a number out of 10, you are giving that film a number out of 10 based on your collective experience with it. Otherwise, why are you rating the film something you haven't even experienced?
No, but it does depend though. I know a lot of people who rate the film based on, like, I know a lot of people who use Letterboxd the way
I know them too.
Like if they were in Clara's position, they would do 5 stars for Social Network, and I know a lot of people who would put 3 stars if they didn't enjoy themselves. It really depends on the person.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. I just think that, again, going back to my problem with this is I think film criticism a lot of the time is a lot of people just thinking a film is good for certain reasons, and therefore automatically, because then your whole way of viewing a film or critiquing a film is flawed. Because then, like, how do you do that? And then you go to rate another film and you're like, oh yeah, actually this film I didn't really like.
I agree.
Like, it's just there's no commonality, which is what, like, again, I think the only true way you can be as objective as possible. If every single person on the planet did this, is fundamentally on a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilled, taking into the technical elements and the story and whatever, if every single person did this, unfortunately they don't, which is why this is such a big thing. If every single person did that, if there was a focus group of like, I don't know, there was a focus group of people, and the question was how fulfilled or how satisfied or how, when you walked out of that film, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? That is what I think.
Do you genuinely think that defines a film as objectifiable? Like, you think if you ask 10,000 people if they felt fulfilled after watching Anyone But You, that opinion is the objective opinion on Anyone But You?
I don't think Anyone But You is a good film. However, I think that...
But a lot of people would be fulfilled watching it.
Maybe.
A lot of...
Maybe.
I'm 100% like...
Maybe.
You can look at like, it's the same discussion. It's even a better discussion is audience score versus critic score.
Sure.
Right. A lot of films, audience score is super high. Anyone But You, I bet you right now we'll open it, it's going to be like 80%, right? Is that the objective? Is that the more objective opinion of that film? I conceptually disagree. I think you need to have an understanding of the medium to compare it to other things that are good within that medium to have that. You cannot define it just on feeling.
Okay, but a critic who's been a critic for like 2 years versus a critic who being a critic for 10 years.
I think critic is a bad example. Let's say like just, and it's not, when I say people who understand films, I don't even mean like people who are like crazy film people. I mean like a lot of people have film like a common knowledge. A lot of people are like cultured in film, you know? Like many people who watch a film a week, I would consider no film. Those people would not probably fuck with Anyone But You.
So this,
you know what I mean?
Again, this is my... I think
objectively, because I actually thought it was fun.
The people... Oh, I fucking hated that.
It was fun.
I thought
it was objectively bad. Objectively bad.
No, but can I just say, I thought it was objectively bad because I just didn't fuck with the film. I thought it was a bad film because
I think it's objectively bad because it's like, it's not a good movie.
Why is it not a good movie?
Come on, you want me to go right now?
No, I know why.
Definitions of why Anyone But You. It's cheesy, it's cliche, it's poorly acted. It's like bad. Like it follows a lot of the story beats that we've known from before.
But you just said you enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it on like a personal, nostalgic level. Like I enjoyed it like, oh, it's fun. Like, oh, he's got a tarantula on his dick. You know what I mean? Like I enjoyed it as like just like conceptually, it's like hee hee ha ha. But is the fact that Glenn Powell has a tarantula in his dick good cinema, bro? Come on. If you ask 80 people out of 100, they'll probably say yes. But come on.
Of course not. But but you had a certain level of enjoyment.
Clip me, bitch.
You had a certain level of enjoyment with that film, correct?
Yeah.
You had a certain level of enjoyment.
Of course, a big level, yeah.
Right. But you also don't think it's like a good film. Like your enjoyment wasn't to the point of like, oh my god, I'm really enjoying this. But
then even if I was really enjoying it, I wouldn't say it's a good film.
Okay. But this is what I'm saying. It's like
I'm gonna look for a specific example.
My point is that I'm making is when directors do that, when whoever did Anyone But You, I think he's the same guy who did Friends with Benefits or whatever, the rom-coms of like the 2000s, etc. When he's making that film, he's not making it,
of course, for critics. No,
he's making it.
Of course,
he's making it for everyone.
But I compare that film to films I think are objectively good.
Why? This is my point.
Because they're in the same medium.
But this is what I'm...
Okay, when you compare the Minecraft movie, do you compare it to other kids' films or do you compare it to other films? They're all in the same medium. No, but you're saying that you shouldn't compare it to other films. You should only compare it to kids' films or comedies. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying on a general level, there's a certain level of expectations that I'm going into seeing. Of course,
I'm not going in Anyone But You thinking I'm gonna watch something to put on my top 10 of the year.
Yeah, but then why would you necessarily compare? Like, I can't quantify how I feel about like. So, for example, Avengers Endgame is to this day the greatest experience I've ever had in a cinema.
Yeah,
I've never felt like that in a cinema. Is like fucking I don't know, Oppenheimer a better film? Of course it is. But they're both like 5-star films. So my point is, it's like it doesn't actually matter. Like
but you're giving examples that are a lot more fluctuating. Let's talk about Anyone But You.
Okay,
Anyone But You, you get an emotional response out of that film. That emotional response, or like fulfillment, you know? Like you, okay, Clara, did you like when you went to watch Anyone But You, did you have fun? Bad example. Okay, most people had fun. Can we agree there?
I don't actually know, but sure.
Should we check the audience score?
Yeah, you tell me.
Okay, most people had fun.
We have been going for an hour and 45. Is this
if you're comparing that to like, I think to define a film as good, you need to look at it within the overall film medium. Even like, am I comparing anyone but you to romantic comedies from the 2010? What do you like? What even when we were talking about Spiderman, you're like, well, you need to compare it to superhero genre films, not superhero films that are not really superhero films. So what am I?
No. I'm not saying. But this is my point. Like, I don't.
Anyone but you has 87% audience reaction. By the way,
that's crazy.
80. So that 87% of people like. So via your definition, Anyone But You is objectively a good film.
I don't think it's a good film.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good film. I don't like the film. However, in its mission to entertain, or in what it was trying to do with the film, it has based on that score, it has clearly worked in what it was trying to do.
But we're talking about objectivity, right? Okay, I'll give you a better example,
Can I
right?
come into something just to like define the themes of your debate to help you? I think you're talking about film for entertainment value and how it entertains people, and I feel like you're talking about film for artistic value. Does that make sense?
I think the artistic value is dependent also on the entertainment. I think you can't exclude the two.
Okay, sure, but I feel like that's...
This is why it's so difficult.
I think that's why you keep disagreeing, that like, it's not pushing the art form.
100%, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but it's entertaining people, and that's what films are meant to do.
No, I'm not saying it's necessarily meant to do. I'm again, like, for me, I don't think that film is good. But there's 100,000 people who would disagree with me.
So is any opinion more objective? Would you say?
In the case of Anyone But You, no.
Really think that the opinion that Anyone But You...
because it's not for me. It's not for movie critics.
But you understand film to a level where you have an opinion that is a lot...
Can I ask you something? So if a new tennis racket is made, would you go and give that tennis racket to footballers to play with it to determine whether or not that racket is good? No, you wouldn't. You would go and give it to tennis players. My point here is...
literally my point. That's literally my point. You go to the tennis players because they have an understanding of the tennis medium and they can say whether the racket is good or not. Okay. You were literally saying, I'm gonna give a tennis racket to football players and define. That's literally like define the answer of the racket.
That was a bad example.
Yeah.
Sorry. You would give it to tennis players.
Yes,
in this case,
who understand tennis.
In this case, the tennis players, the general audience, are the tennis players.
Absolutely not true. Yeah. The general audience. I'll give you the example. You make a new tennis racket. You put 100 people on a tennis court, 10 of which are tennis players. The 90 people that are not tennis players are the general audience. The 10 people who are tennis players are the critics in this case. Yep. So if the tennis players like the racket, that is the opinion that you will trust, no?
No, because
you're going to trust the opinion of people who don't play tennis over the tennis racket.
No, but this is my point. My point is that tennis racket, what's the purpose of it? You can get a tennis racket from the
purpose of it is to be a good tennis racket. That's the purpose of it. Okay, but it's not to be played with. The purpose of it is to be a good tennis racket. That's the purpose of anything. You make a camera. For who? Purpose of the camera.
For who? Who's the tennis racket meant to be good for? Is it meant to be good for someone who wants to go to the tennis courts every month and go and play, or an actual pro tennis player?
You take the tennis racket that is good for the person who plays once a week versus a tennis racket that is for a tennis player.
Yeah.
Based on the medium of tennis, this racket, the one that is the tennis player racket, is objectively a better racket, no?
For a tennis player, yeah. For a tennis player.
No.
For a tennis player.
No. In the world of tennis, in the concept of tennis, you're telling me that the tennis player racket is the same level of racket as an ordinary person's racket because they play different tennis?
Tennis is a different...
Well, it's exactly the same.
Well, it has to be like that, bro.
No, the tennis player racket that is more attuned to the sport of tennis is clearly the better racket.
Well, they're both... my point here is they're both attuned to the sport. One has more technicalities to it, and therefore one is suited to a tennis pro more versus the other where the racket is a general, like you can go and pick it up in a supermarket and anybody can play. It's a one size fits all. It's a one size. Listen.
Crazy to me.
Listen. It's a one size fit. Yeah, but like if you show,
you really think a racket made for a tennis player is within the context of tennis is as good as a racket made for a random person?
But this is what I'm saying.
Because they play different tennis.
It depends on who's what. Like it depends on the person. It genuinely depends on the person. That's what I think.
It's all tennis. One racket hits the ball better.
What?
Like you hit the ball better with one racket, right?
No,
like
that's
with
not how,
one
that's,
of the
that's,
rackets.
that's not how tennis
I don't
works.
know tennis.
It's not how tennis works.
A bad example.
It's not how tennis
One
works.
racket makes it easier for your forehand or whatever. You know what I mean?
No, but this is my point. That's not how it works. My point is, again, the director of Anyone But You, they're not making a film for critics. They're making a film for everyone. Right?
Correct.
So you can't judge Anyone But You, like generally speaking. I mean, we do.
I
You
think this
can't-
is just. I know what you. I know exactly where you're going. You said it, but I think
Like,
this
in
is
the
just
context of
our
Anyone But-
overall
in the-
disagreement.
yeah, no,
is
but-
that I think you can. I think you should.
In the context of Anyone, yeah, but obviously, I would say
No, but actually, the tennis racket is a great example. I
It's
know
not.
you don't like it it is because Anyone But You is the racket that is made for the ordinary person, right? The director, the people, they give that racket to the ordinary person loves it. You give that racket to a tennis player, the tennis player is going to choose another racket, even if it is a completely different racket.
yeah.
So I trust the fucking tennis player who understands tennis to tell me which racket is better.
Racket the tennis player uses though might not be the best racket for the ordinary person.
Sure.
That's
but-
my point.
Sure, but what's
That
the better
ordinary-
racket? Sure.
Better is a concept that we've
it's
constructed.
not.
Yes,
No,
we have.
one-
Yes, we have.
one-
It literally is. That's what I think.
One hits the ball better. Facts. No, one racket is better.
The hitting ball thing is a completely different thing.
No, it's literally.
It's a
what it is.
construct. It's a construct. A good film is a construct that we have made up over time. This is why
Quantifiable is the same.
it's not. It's not fully quantifiable.
A fucking tennis court is a construct. The way you hit the ball is a construct.
What?
You know what I mean? Like we've invented these things. It's quantifiable.
Yeah, tennis is quantifiable because it has a scoring system and it has a mathematical court. That's different. I'm
That
talking
is-
about art.
okay, fair. Go ahead, go fucking too excited there.
Yeah, it is. my point is, a good film is a construct that we over time have built in our minds.
Yeah.
If aliens came down and then we showed them what we think is the best film, in order to
You
save the
could show
planet.
them fucking Anyone But
I didn't
You.
say that.
Because 87%
I didn't say
of
that.
people like it.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. What I would say is, our perception of what a good film is
Yeah.
comes with the general experience of over time in our lives, etc. Objectively good, as we defined earlier, there is no such thing. And even amongst critics, even amongst general audiences, you always get people disagreeing between what if a film
I
is
agree.
good or
There is not.
So
a
that's
thing
what my point
as
is. It's like,
objectively good, but you can get close to it. That's my whole point.
okay, but Anyone But You, yes, of course I think it's a shit film. Of course it is. I'm not saying it. But it doesn't matter what I think. My point is, if a film sets out to do something and it does it, who are we to say? What is the point of comparing
I
Anyone
agree,
But
yeah,
You
I agree there.
to fucking Killers of the Flower Moon? It does not make sense. Film criticism does not make sense if we compare Jack and Jill to Martin Scorsese's like Killers of the Flower Moon.
I agree.
It doesn't make sense. So I don't understand why you would go if you're on Letterboxd and you're like, even though I really enjoyed Anyone But You, I can't give this film a 4 stars because it's actually too close to my rating because I gave Martin Scorsese's new film a 4 stars. I can't give it that. Sure, Scorsese's is a better film, but my point is like it doesn't actually matter. It does not
I
matter.
think the one thing we agree on is do whatever you want, rate whatever
Right,
you want,
yeah.
like whatever you like.
Yeah.
But genuinely, that
Yeah.
I think we disagree on a lot of what defines objectivity. but
Exactly.
like what you like, rate what you rate. I don't
Exactly,
care.
exactly.
It's just for fun, like you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, honestly is. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I think, and this is again the problem with film criticism. People just think like, oh, they think that this makes a film good. When I think like, if you don't feel in any way, shape, or form somewhat fulfilled or taken something away from the film, emotionally or whatever, I'm not saying you have to cry or something that makes sense. It doesn't matter. A film could look amazing. The Weeknd's new film looked fantastic. It's a pile of shit.
It is a
because,
pile of shit.
Because I didn't fucking feel
It
anything.
is. It
I
really
just
is.
genuinely didn't feel anything.
No,
The
it's also
technical
a pile of
the
shit because of, I mean, not from
the technical craft is amazing.
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
but the editing, the story composition, the writing, those are all bad, and I think those define a film a lot.
Of course they do.
When we say technical craft, the lighting and the color was fantastic and all, etc. But that film has major issues that are not just emotional response connected.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's just written horrendously.
Yeah, but that
It's
is that.
acted
Yeah,
horrendously.
but that's these are all linked to emotional response.
Well, yeah, but you can have a film that is written bad and gives you an emotional response as well.
How?
Well, Anyone But You gives me an emotional response, and it's not written well.
As in, you laugh at it.
No, I'm like, oh,
Really?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Okay. I mean, in that case, there was a certain level of investment you had in the story. If
Sure,
if
yeah.
you genuinely reacted like that, well,
It
therefore,
sounds like I fucking loved anyone. It sounds like that's my like. I actually didn't like it for the record, but I it was like, all right, I had fun. It was not on the same mid level as Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is better than Anyone But You, but it's the same concept.
yeah. So I think again, like I think when we talk about like critic scores and audience scores,
Yeah,
I think the truly great films do both.
I agree.
They satisfy
I
every type of person.
do. I actually agree.
I do.
I don't know. At this point, my brain is a mesh out of all
I've got a headache.
all the thought analysis and things like that.
I've got a headache. I don't know if we're gonna do the next episode.
You can split this one in two.
I don't even know where I'll start to do that. To conclude and
Yeah.
to wrap this up, let's conclude this.
Yeah.
I hope there's like one person still here.
If there is, it's actually been such a good debate. I feel like it's been really vibey.
Yeah. The thing is, for me, I don't wholeheartedly disagree on what necessarily makes a good film. I'm just of the belief that, unfortunately, I think just people attribute good films to purely materialistic things that they can see in a film, and they think it's what makes a good film. But fundamentally, I think if you give a film like, and I'm guilty of doing this as well, I'm just saying, but I think that's the problem with film criticism. I think if you give a film a really high rating, but you literally felt nothing, I think you're doing a disservice to what I think film criticism should be, because you're just being pretentious. Me saying that, I also think it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't. Film criticism doesn't even fucking matter. Like, rating films doesn't fucking matter. If you go watch a film and you like it, who else? Who am I to say otherwise?
I agree with that. And my final thoughts would be, I think this has opened my eyes a lot on how actually deeply complex this is, because every sentence that I say or you say opens up a new Pandora's box in my head, and it's it's so incredibly like full of, you know, you need so much context and so much thought and so much like understanding of your own perception and other people's perception and all of these things to really form an opinion. But I agree, at the end of the day, you know, film criticism, we love talking about films. It's there for fun, and at the end of the day, there is so much we can both say. I think there is objectivity in film. I don't think it is an objective medium. I think there is objectivity in it based on previous things. But at the end of the day, who cares? I think genuinely, like, the whole point is that it is at the end of the day, and I think the more, you know, nowadays, just as even as a creative, but also as a film goer, I actually am starting to love again films that have a bit more of like this cool, entertaining quality, that are not like the heaviest drama ever that has every theme. So taste as well varies and things like that. So on the end of the day, like what you like, you know what I mean? Like different people like different things, and it comes and it goes.
Yeah.
My brain, I don't even know what I said there in the last like 10 sentences.
Yeah. That being said, I still don't know why you think Spider-Man 2 is objectively mid, but
objectively mid. Let's go. You come on. After this whole episode, you don't know.
Again,
we're not starting it. We're not starting.
We're not starting it. But I'm just like, I think like you've said all the things that make it like objectively good.
No, it's all basically. If you just want my final like full on everything that makes a movie, I think in Spider-Man 2 is fine. I think none of it is great, which is why I think is mid.
That's completely fine. You're absolutely allowed to say the film is fine, but to say it's objectively fine or objectively mid,
well, I think those things that make a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
No. That's why I stopped saying I. That's why I la. So the things that make a movie, I think, based on the pot of world cinema, the way that we analyze those things, I think those things, I fucking can't say anything without, but when you say I think it's like I think those things then become somewhat objectifiable, and I think we can apply that knowledge to films like Spider-Man 2.
Right. Okay. And again, not to open this up again, but you know, when you say I objectively think, those are contradicting statements.
But you know what I mean. I'm just saying I think because we're in a debate.
Yeah, but
I say I think when I think I'm going to go to the store, and I've decided I'm going to go to the store 10 hours ago.
Right. But again, the debate that me and you got into was over the word objective.
Yeah.
And I think it's impossible for one to say, I say it all
you
the time.
think.
It isn't possible to say I think a film is
I agree there.
objectively
I
good.
agree there.
Because I think the closest thing to objectivity is general consensus.
If I've ever said I think objectively, yes, I agree with you. That's just language. That's linguistics. You know what I mean? That's not fucking cinema. that's just my immigrant self.
Yeah. And again, I think the closest thing we have to objectivity, if you want whether or not a film is objectively good, is, for the most part, I think, general consensus.
Agree to disagree.
I think if you go on a movie, we never even got into like Rotten Tomatoes.
I
and
think
IMDb.
it is. No. I'm literally like.
I'm done. My brain is fried.
Yeah. I think, last thought, it is the closest we can get to it is not even critics' response, but is the response of people who have a general understanding of the cinema medium.
But that is critics.
No, because you can be like, I know plenty of people who are like, know films but are not critics. You know what I mean? Is Clara?
Critics that don't know films.
Is Clara a critic?
And there are critics that don't know films.
Yeah, I think.
What, like one or two?
No.
Critics?
No. Clara's a great example. Clara would be somebody, if you had like 1,000 Claras, that to me is the closest you can get to defining objectivity amongst other critics, because Clara, you're not a critic, right? You would say you're not a film critic, but she has a good baseline of understanding cinema. That's what I mean. You can't compare Clara to somebody who watches 2 films in the cinema a year and one of them is anyone but you. You just cannot. Okay, I'm fucking putting these down. That's
Why
it.
are you put it back on?
because we're gonna get into it again.
Wait. We won't. Another 5 minutes. We gotta shake on it.
Okay.
But
Look.
for example, my mum is a film critic. She's written pieces for newspapers about films. Would you say she has a better film understanding than I do?
I don't know. I have no idea. I literally have no idea, because I think me and your mum disagree on a lot of films.
Yeah, no, I know, but like I just feel.
So that's why I think it doesn't fucking matter. It literally doesn't matter if the average. What matters is how many people think that film is good. Unfortunately,
I don't know. I think I just disagree. Like, no, that's not true. It's many people think many bad films are good, and they are not in fact good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the disagreement we're having here is I think films are and should, for the most part, be for everyone. And I
agree there.
And I think that no one group of people should be allowed to have a sort of judgment on the film. Like, no one group of person is better to, like, it's. Yes, you could watch more films, but again, you could watch more films and develop more bias towards certain films. Like, there's so many things that could do it. Like, if you're a critic and you watch a certain type of film and you watch more art house films or whatever, you can develop bias. Like, there is no true way of truly like giving a film an objective score. Like, that's my point. My point is, like, a superhero film could come out and the general audience, like everyone, loves the film apart from critics. Which has more value? I don't. You would say the critics, but then I would say, like, well, it's a good film, because if everybody fucking loves the film, then they must have something to take away from.
Well, interesting opinion.
Do you believe? Okay, cool.
Give me.
No. I was gonna say, like, no, it's fine. We're gonna get into it again. I don't know. That being said, I am also like, I feel like, even though I would say I would probably trust critics over general audiences, but that's from my personal take. But the point here is, you ask an average person, you ask a random person, they might not give a shit about what critics think.
Yeah.
Therefore, to them, a film isn't necessarily better. Like, that's my point. And I think that's, like, if you because critics are a subgroup of humanity. If you showed it to general people, like, as most films in the cinema come out to general people, that's what you should be like, making the film criticism.
I have examples, but I don't want to go around in circles, so I won't give them. But it's like modern art. If you like, I was like, I'm not gonna give them. But if you look at a painting and you don't know anything about modern art, and a random person tells you what they think of the painting versus a person who's studied modern art their entire life, I would trust the person who studied modern art their entire life.
Why?
Because they have an understanding of modern art that the random person doesn't have.
But what are they gonna say? That makes it better. Like, give me an example of something like someone a modern art critic would say.
I genuinely can't. I don't know modern art, but I'm like, that is the opinion that I would, like, kind of tend to follow more, because I would be like, well, they know modern art.
But why does
they're
that matter
basing it on understanding of the medium. I want something to relate to the medium.
But why does that matter for you?
It doesn't. I'm just saying it as an example of, like, the whole discussion we've been talking about. To me, it matters, if we're talking about modern art, to me it matters if I like the painting or not.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean the painting is good. It matters if I like it.
So again, like that's what I'm saying. Is like the whole idea of a film being good is the general consensus.
Well, agree to disagree.
That's what I think. But yeah, for the most part. But hey, there you go.
There we go.
There we go. Fuck me.
We got into it. We got into it.
Like genuinely, we were just talking, and now it's hit 2 hours. Like it's
That's
crazy.
crazy. That is crazy.
It is actually. You fucking giving me an edit job and a half, man. Oh man. Oh yeah. I don't.
Oh wait,
like-
are we clocked off? Or are we?
No, we're still going to say.
Oh.
I think we the pair of us agree with certain elements of what the other is saying for sure. I think that the main thing where we disagree on is, I just think that because film is so subjective, you can't put someone's. You can't necessarily, and it's supposed to invoke a level of emotion. You can't necessarily value someone else's experience with film over someone else's.
Yeah.
That's my point. So I don't know. Generally speaking, I still do though. But but yeah, guys, there you go. That is my.
If anybody watched this entire episode, like fucking kudos to you. What?
We're speaking to Dylan in the edit. That's what we're speaking to. But guys, if you tune into a little bit of that, a lot of that, most of it, all of it, thank you so much. Thanks, Mickey, for coming and
My pleasure. Always
taking this out.
Now, I think this was an objectively good episode, if you ask me.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who
knows? I think I don't know. I think it just goes to show that, but like genuinely, the pair of us genuinely really. We care about this stuff to a certain extent.
I care about it a lot, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Mickey is a filmmaker. You've just made a film that you're going to premiere. Of course, these are all things you're going to be thinking about.
Yeah, I am already, yeah.
Yeah, so like we care, and you might not, but hey, hopefully it was a fun discussion, and maybe we'll do this at some point against you. Someone has to moderate this though, because otherwise it's like. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you very soon in the next episode of the Popcorn Podcast. Cheers.
Peace.